I was not born with discipline. No one is. We are born wild, free like the wind, scattered like light. But to truly shine, you must focus that light. When I was a boy in Hong Kong, I was loud, fast with my fists, faster with my pride. People feared me, but not because I had power. They feared the chaos I carried. I was fighting on the streets, not for justice, not for survival, but for the thrill. And in that chaos, I thought I was free. Free to do whatever I wanted. Free to skip school. Free to disrespect my teachers. Free to punch first and think later. But freedom without purpose is the first step toward destruction. I still remember that day, the day I was told, if you don't leave Hong Kong, you'll be in prison or a coffin. It wasn't a threat. It was a truth. I had lost control. I was fast, but going in the wrong direction. And speed in the wrong direction is disaster. So my father, with heavy eyes, said, go to America, start over. And just like that, at the age of 18, I packed my chaos in a suitcase and went searching for peace. America was cold, not just in weather, but in feeling. I was alone. No fame, no reputation, just a name and a fire inside me. I washed dishes to eat. I slept in tiny rooms. I was no one. And that's when I met the real teacher. Not a man, not a master, but a force. Discipline. People think discipline is a punishment. A strict man shouting orders. A boring, lifeless routine. But real discipline is a friend. It waits silently in the shadows. It watches you skip the workout. It watches you sleep through the alarm. It never yells. But when you need it, when you are broken, lost, scattered, it reaches out with a hand made of steel and says, let's try again. Bruce, do you want to be strong? Then wake up at 5 a.m. even when it hurts. Do you want to be remembered? Then train when no one is watching. Do you want to be free? Then obey your higher self, not your mood. I started listening, one small change at a time. Every morning I ran the hills. My legs burned, my lungs fought, but the wind on my face whispered something. You are alive, you are moving, keep going. Then I would stretch for an hour, not just to make my body flexible, but to quiet the storm in my mind. I trained not to defeat others, but to conquer the chaos I carried. Discipline gave me more than muscles. It gave me clarity. It separated the noise from the music, the ego from the art, the anger from the energy. People say I was fast, but discipline made me fast. People say I had power, but discipline shaped that power. In the beginning, I was a fighter, but through discipline, I became a warrior. And there's a difference. A fighter punches because he's angry. A warrior punches because it is necessary. A fighter trains when motivated. A warrior trains because it is who he is. I didn't choose discipline. Discipline chose me. The moment I realized that freedom without control is slavery in disguise. But this was just the beginning, because real discipline is tested not in the gym, but in the darkness, when dreams fall apart and the world tells you to quit. And I was about to be tested in ways I could never imagine. They say discipline is a choice, but to me, it became a matter of survival. In America, I had no fans, no fame, just quiet mornings and the cold silence of empty pockets. Every day was a test, and the first enemy I faced was not poverty or rejection, it was comfort. The temptation to sleep in, to skip a session, to relax just for a day. But I had seen where that road led. I knew that comfort is the enemy of greatness. So I built a routine, not out of habit, but out of desperation. I would wake up before the sun, sometimes with nothing but hunger in my stomach and fire in my chest. I ran not just to strengthen my legs, but to silence my doubts. I shadow boxed in alleyways, practiced kicks behind closed diners, whispered affirmations between dishwashing shifts. While others celebrated weekends, I practiced stillness. While they wasted time, I carved mine into pieces and used every second. You see, discipline doesn't scream at you, it whispers. It tells you to keep going when your knees shake. It tells you to stretch 1 minute longer, punch 1 rep harder, think 1 thought deeper. And slowly, it changes you. Not just your body, but your identity. My muscles grew lean, yes, but more importantly, my mind sharpened. I began seeing every action, every small choice as a brushstroke on the canvas of who I was becoming. Discipline made me deliberate. I didn't speak unless it served a purpose. I didn't train unless I meant it. I didn't waste even my failures. I studied them. And soon people began to notice. Bruce, they would say, you are different. But they didn't see the war I fought in silence. The war against my own comfort, against excuses, against that weaker version of myself who still lived inside me, begging for one more break, one more distraction. That voice never truly dies, but with discipline, you learn to outwork it. You learn to rise, not because you feel like it, but because it's the only way to stay true to your future. My body became a tool. My routine became my shield. And with each sunrise, I earned something no one could give me inner freedom. The freedom that comes when your soul knows, I showed up, I kept my word, I did the work. And that feeling, that silent pride, no applause can match it. People often mistook me for someone who was free because I lived on my own terms. But the truth is, real freedom only comes through restraint. You see, I met many men who were talented, sharp, strong even, but they were slaves to their mood, to their impulses, to their laziness. They called it freedom when they skipped training. They called it freedom when they drank until their ambition drowned. But to me, that wasn't freedom. That was bondage, a quieter, deadlier prison that most never escaped. Freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. Freedom is the ability to choose what serves you, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's the hardest part. Because the path of least resistance feels good in the moment, but it costs you everything over time. When I began disciplining myself, people said I was too strict, too focused. They didn't understand I wasn't trying to look strong. I was trying to build a life I wouldn't need to escape from. Discipline gave me structure, and structure gave me space. Space to create, space to think, space to grow. Without it, I would have been like a fire with no shape, wild, burning, and eventually fading out. But with discipline, I became like a control flame, directed, consistent, and powerful. It taught me how to channel my energy, not just into my punches or my acting, but into my character, into how I showed up for others, into how I held myself in silence when the world tried to shake me. And the beautiful irony is this: the more I restricted my choices, the more powerful I became. I stopped needing to prove anything to anyone. I didn't care who doubted me, who copied me, or who dismissed me. My discipline gave me an inner fortress unshakable. Because while others were busy reacting to the world, I was busy mastering my response to it. That is freedom. Not chaos, not recklessness, but calm power. That's what I found in the fire of discipline, a new kind of freedom no one could see, but everyone could feel. Most people think my strength came from my body, from how fast I moved or how high I could kick. But they don't know that the real battle was happening in my mind. Every morning I woke up, there was a voice inside me that said, take it easy, you've done enough, rest today. And every day, I had to defeat that voice, not once, but over and over again. That's the hidden war no one sees. The mental discipline. You see, physical training is easy. You lift the weight, throw the punch, stretch the muscle. But mental training, that's where most people break, because it requires silence, stillness, honesty. You have to sit with your doubts, your insecurities, your fears, and not run from them. Most people distract themselves. They use noise to avoid truth. But I learned to sit in that silence and ask myself the hard questions. Are you doing this to impress or to grow? Are you chasing fame or mastery? Are you acting from strength or fear? And when the answers hurt, I didn't escape. I adjusted. I rewired. I evolved. Mental discipline is about choosing the hard thing before it becomes the only option. It's about observing your own thoughts, not obeying them blindly. Just because I felt tired didn't mean I had to act tired. Just because I felt fear didn't mean I had to surrender. That's what training my mind gave me the power to separate feeling from action, to respond with intention, not emotion. And slowly it changed everything. My confidence didn't come from being the best, it came from knowing I was prepared every single day. That's what calmed me before a fight, before a scene, before a storm. That's why I never needed to shout to prove I was strong. Because the loudest power is always quiet. Mental discipline gave me that quiet, that inner anchor that held me steady even when the world around me tried to shake my ground. There came a time when all my strength, all my training, all my dreams were suddenly tested. I was at the peak of my ability, climbing fast in Hollywood, finally being seen not just as an Asian actor, but as an artist of force. And then, one morning, everything changed. My back broken, a careless movement during training, and just like that, I was told I might never kick again, never fight, never even walk the same way. The doctors looked at me with soft eyes and silent doubt. You need to accept this, they said. This might be permanent. And for a moment, I believed them. For a moment, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing that small voice again. It's over. You were wrong to hope. But this time, that voice didn't scare me, because I had trained for this. Not physically, but mentally. Discipline had taught me one truth I never forgot. Pain is not the enemy, surrender is. So I didn't surrender. I studied, I wrote, I healed. I spent hours reading about the human body, movement, muscle. I turned my recovery into a mission. Each small stretch, each painful motion became a battle, and I showed up for it daily as if my life depended on it. Because it did. The world thought Bruce Lee was on pause, but in truth, I was evolving. In that pain, I found patience. In that stillness, I found strategy. And in that doubt, I found the deepest form of confidence, the kind that doesn't come from success, but from survival. Most people think strength is loud, flashy, fast, but real strength is quiet. Real strength is built in moments when no one is clapping, no one is watching, and you choose to fight anyway. That injury could have ended my story, but discipline turned it into my next chapter. And when I finally returned, I didn't come back the same. I came back sharper, wiser, and more dangerous than ever, because now I had seen how fragile it all was. And when you know how quickly life can take everything, you stop wasting time. Fame is loud. It knocks on your door like a storm, cameras flashing, people shouting your name, scripts, interviews, deals. It flatters your ego and tries to convince you that you've arrived, that you're done, that you're now someone special. But I had seen too many men lose themselves in that illusion. They climbed high, then forgot how they got there, and within a few years, they were ghosts of who they once were. I didn't want that. I didn't want to become a man who only existed in applause. That's why even when the world shouted my name, I protected silence like it was sacred. Every morning I would wake up early before the noise could find me and move my body with precision, alone. I would write in my journals, not about success or roles, but about truth, my fears, my habits, my weaknesses. You see, discipline isn't just about doing, it's about reflecting. Fame tells you to run faster, but discipline teaches you to pause, to ask, is this who I want to be? So while others chased attention, I chased alignment. I turned down roles that didn't feel true to my philosophy. I walked out of rooms where I felt I was being packaged like a product. People called me difficult, arrogant even. But they didn't see the cost of saying yes to everything. If you're not careful, the world will turn you into what sells, not what lives. That's why I kept returning to my roots, to movement, meditation, simplicity. I didn't need luxury. I didn't crave validation. I only needed one thing, to stay true to the fire that had built me when no one was watching. That's the discipline that fame can't buy, the ability to remember your truth when everyone's trying to rewrite it. I wasn't afraid of being forgotten. I was afraid of forgetting myself. And so I remained silent in the noise, grounded in the storm, not because I wanted to be mysterious, but because I knew that real power doesn't scream. It listens, it watches, it waits, and then moves with meaning. For years, I thought discipline was about control, about strength, toughness, sacrifice, and it was. But as I grew older, as I held my children, as I loved deeper and lost people I cared for, something shifted. I began to see discipline not as something cold or harsh, but as an act of deep love. Because what is love, if not showing up again and again, even when it's hard? What is love if not protecting something precious, your health, your craft, your family, your soul, through quiet, invisible choices? People ask me, Bruce, why do you train so hard? Why do you live so strict? And I smile. Because they think it's about being better than others, but it never was. It was about being fully alive for the people I loved, for the art I believed in, for the version of me that my son could look up to and say, that is how a man lives with purpose. You see, discipline isn't the enemy of joy. It is the path to it. Without it, your dreams rot, your body weakens, your spirit dulls. But with it, you sharpen, you expand, you radiate. Discipline is love in motion. It says, I care enough to do what's right, not what's easy. It's how you serve others. It's how you protect your peace. It's how you show the universe that you're ready for more, for growth, for greatness. And as I reflect now, not as a fighter, not as an actor, but as a man, I can tell you nothing brought me more peace than knowing I had lived deliberately, that I hadn't coasted, that I hadn't wasted the gift of life trying to be comfortable. I burned for something. I gave myself to it fully. And that is love. That is freedom. That is the highest form of discipline. Even after I was gone, the discipline remained. In the way my students trained, in the way a child in another country watched one of my films and decided to stand taller, in the way someone read my words in a dusty old book and finally felt seen. That's the thing about discipline when done right. It outlives you. It becomes a signal, a silent guidepost for others lost in their own storm. People often ask, Bruce, how did you do so much in such little time? And I tell them, I didn't win. I didn't ask for perfect moments. I created them. I used my pain as fuel. I used silence as strategy. I trained not for a fight, but for life. My every move was intentional. Not because I feared death, but because I loved life too much to waste it. And now, long after the applause faded, long after the cameras turned off, there is still something alive, a whisper, a rhythm, a reminder that somewhere out there, a soul is choosing to rise early, to show up, to fight doubt, to stay true. And maybe they don't even know my name. Maybe they just feel something in the air, a kind of permission to be fierce, focused, free. That is the echo of discipline. That is what I leave behind. Not statues, not fame, but fire. A fire that lights up in the heart of anyone bold enough to believe that their life can mean something, that their pain can transform, that their choices, small, quiet, consistent, can become a legacy. I was Bruce Lee, But more than that, I was a man who chose to live awake, and I hope so will you.